My ex-girlfriend took her own life because of me. At least that's what I thought until I started looking into her relationship with her sister. We met when I was 26, she was 24. Lena was this weird, brilliant, magnetic force of nature. The kind of person who'd stare too long, laugh too loud, and get real quiet when nobody was looking. We met through mutual friends, one of those rooftop parties with bad beer and a broken speaker. We were both chain-smoking outside and started making fun of the same guy in a fedora. That was it. For 2 years, we were inseparable. Late-night drives, dumb inside jokes, binge-watching horror movies. I loved her even when she unraveled. Even when her moods swung so hard I felt like I was living with a stranger. She had a history of depression, she never hid that. She'd been in and out of therapy, on and off meds. But she made me feel like I could be her anchor. Except I wasn't. We broke up after a fight that started over a text from my coworker. Innocent shit literally about a spreadsheet, but Lena went ballistic. Accused me of cheating, said she couldn't trust me. I snapped. Told her I was done walking on eggshells. That I couldn't be her emotional punching bag. That maybe she needed help I couldn't give her. It was the last time we spoke. 3 weeks later, I got a call from her sister, Mara. Lena had been found in her apartment. Pills and alcohol. No note. Just gone. My world collapsed. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't sleep. Every second felt like I was stuck in the moment. She must have decided to do it. I kept playing back our last fight, analyzing every word like a forensic scene. What if I hadn't yelled? What if I just stayed? What if I hadn't said those last cold words? I went full ghost after that. Quit my job. Moved across the state. Cut off mutual friends. I couldn't stand the sight of anyone who reminded me of her, and I definitely couldn't stand myself. I drank too much, slept too little, and started writing letters to her I never sent. I'd see her in dreams. Sometimes screaming. Sometimes silent. Once I woke up screaming her name and my downstairs neighbor called the cops thinking I was being attacked. But nobody was attacking me. I was the attacker. Years passed. Guilt became part of my skin. I'd tell new people she died, but never how. Never why. I stayed in touch with Mara for a while, mostly in the first few months after the funeral. But she was strange. Cold, almost, rehearsed. She acted like she wanted me to stay away, which I did. She didn't want me at the memorial, said Lena wouldn't have wanted that. That I had done enough. Those words haunted me. I remember thinking I must have really broken her. That maybe I was just like her dad, who Lena once said had a cruel streak wrapped in charm. I hated myself. And the shame? It was quiet. Constant. Heavy. I didn't date for years. I didn't trust myself to be around anyone fragile. But the truth is, the version of Lena I carried in my memory wasn't the whole story. Not even close. And I only started seeing the cracks when I found something Mara accidentally left behind. Something that didn't add up. And that's when the guilt turned into something else. Not grief. Suspicion. It happened on a Tuesday. I remember because I was at my favorite used bookstore, the one with the creaky floors and the weird cat who hates everyone. I was in the back corner, flipping through a vintage photography book when I heard someone behind me say her name. Lena. My stomach clenched. I turned slowly, expecting some kind of ghost. But it was just a girl, mid-20s, blonde streaks, talking to a guy in a faded flannel. I lingered, listening like a creep. She always had a flair for the dramatic, the girl said. Remember when she got caught sneaking into that psych class just to stare at the professor she was obsessed with? The guy laughed. Classic Lena. I still think she made half of that stuff up for attention. I didn't say anything. Just left. Fast. But it stuck with me, the way they talked about her. Not like someone they mourned. Not even like someone they respected. Just a chaotic story they survived. I told myself to let it go. Maybe they were just assholes. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. And then Mara reached out. Out of the blue, she DM'd me on Instagram, responding to an old photo I'd posted of Lena and me at the beach. She wrote, "Can you take this down? It's really upsetting for the family." No, hi. No, how are you? Just a demand. I stared at the screen, heart racing. I hadn't heard from Mara in almost 3 years. I almost didn't reply. But something made me type back, "She looked happy here. Are you sure she'd want this erased?" Mara left me on read. Typical. But a few days later, I got an email from an old mutual friend, Sam. We hadn't talked in ages. His message just said, "Hey. Not sure if you still think you're the reason. But you're not. You never were." That was it. I emailed back instantly, "What do you mean?" No reply. Now I couldn't think about anything else. Every lie I had told myself to make sense of her death started falling apart. Lena had been depressed, yes, but was that the whole story? Was I the whole story? I started digging. I still had a few of her things in a box in my closet. Old letters. A journal she left at my place. I hadn't touched it since the day she died. That night, I pulled it out. My hands shook as I opened it, half expecting it to yell at me or bleed or something stupid. Most of it was typical Lena. Wild poetry. Snarky rants. Musings about death that read more like performance art than confessions. But one entry caught me off guard. Mara always says I ruin things. That I steal too much attention. But what the hell does she expect when she keeps touching me like that and then pretending it didn't happen? I froze. Reread it. Then again. I flipped through the journal like a madman. There were more entries. Vague, scattered. Mentions of Mara being controlling. Of lines being crossed and late-night confessions that Lena said she was afraid to call what they were. I didn't know what to think. I felt sick. It couldn't mean what I thought it meant. Could it? I found an old flash drive taped inside the back cover of the journal. I'd never noticed it before. It had a little red sticker on it with a heart drawn in permanent marker. I almost didn't plug it in. But I did. It was a folder of videos and voice memos. Lena recording herself late at night. Rambling, whispering, crying. One of them started like this. If you're hearing this, I probably didn't make it. Mara, I hope you never get to play the grieving sister on camera. You don't deserve it. You broke me. You made me feel like I was crazy for feeling anything at all. You always did. I stopped breathing. Everything I thought I knew about her death began to unravel. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. I just kept replaying Lena's voice in those recordings, over and over. I'd always remembered her voice a certain way, sharp, sarcastic, with that little upward lilt when she was being funny. But in these clips, she sounded tired, slurred sometimes, like she was floating just above herself, watching it all fall apart. There were 6 voice memos and 2 videos. The videos were the worst. The first one was just her sitting cross-legged on the floor of her bedroom, hair tied up, hoodie zipped to her chin. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. The camera wobbled as she set it down. Then she looked straight into the lens. This is for me, I guess. Or for whoever finally figures it out. I feel like I'm unraveling and I don't know what's mine anymore. Mara told me not to talk to anyone. She says I make things sound worse than they are. But she won't let me breathe. She shows up, drunk sometimes, and says I'm the only one who ever loved her right. And then she disappears for days. I don't know what's real anymore. I don't know if I imagined it all. I just want someone to tell me I'm not crazy. I paused the video and stared at my screen like it had just spit in my face. Mara, her sister. Lena had hinted once, early in our relationship, that her family was messed up. She called Mara intense and too close, but I thought it was just sister drama. I never saw them together long enough to suspect anything. Mara always seemed cold, but nothing I could point to as sinister. But now, my hands shook as I played the second video. It was shot on her bed. The camera angled slightly too low, like she hadn't meant to record anything at first. You could hear voices in the background. One was definitely Lena. The other, couldn't be sure. But then Lena came into frame, holding a wine bottle and muttering something about how she always makes it my fault. She looked scared. Then she turned the camera off. That was the last file. After that, I sat in silence for nearly an hour. Just existing, sweating, drowning. My guilt was being replaced by something colder, sharper. Anger, rage even, but also grief all over again. Grief with a different name. I started looking into Mara. I remembered she had a public-facing job, some PR firm, lots of social media. Her Instagram was mostly quotes about healing and grace after loss. Vomit-worthy now. One post had over 3,000 likes. A picture of her holding Lena's necklace, with a caption about sisters by blood, best friends by soul. I wanted to smash something. I messaged Sam again. This time I didn't ask. I told him I needed to talk. He responded within minutes, gave me a time and a place. We met at a bar downtown. Low lights, whiskey-stained tables. I looked like hell and didn't care. He slid into the booth across from me, didn't even say hi, just looked me in the eyes and said, "So you finally found something, didn't you?" I nodded. "Tell me everything." And he did. Apparently, Mara and Lena had a messed up relationship for years. Sam had dated one of their mutual friends and had been around their circle often. He said there were always rumors. Whispers about the way Mara touched Lena's hair too long, or how she'd get jealous whenever Lena dated someone new. Especially me. She hated you, Sam said. I mean, weirdly hated you. Like you were taking something that belonged to her. He also told me about a night 6 months before Lena died, when she showed up at his apartment shaking. Said she didn't feel safe going home. That Mara had gotten blackout drunk and tried to kiss her. That when Lena pushed her away, Mara called her a slut and said, "Nobody else will want you after me." I nearly vomited. Sam had tried to get Lena to go to the cops, but she begged him not to. Said it would destroy the family. Said no one would believe her. No one did. Not even me. I left the bar in a daze, stomach in knots, heart racing like a drumline in my ears. For years I had been drowning in the belief that I was the storm, that I had broken the woman I loved. But the truth was uglier, colder, and wearing the face of her own flesh and blood. I didn't want it to be true. I wanted to crawl back into the version of reality where I was the villain and Lena was just broken. That version hurt like hell, but at least it made sense. At least it had a shape I could wrap my arms around. But now I was standing in front of a mirror I'd been too scared to look into for years, and the reflection staring back at me wasn't me. It was her. Mara, the one who cried crocodile tears at Lena's funeral. The one who told me I shouldn't come. The one who kept calling Lena unstable to everyone who would listen. I started piecing things together like a lunatic detective. I dug into old messages, old group chats I still had archived. There was a thread with Mara and Lena from the first few months Lena and I started dating. I hadn't looked at it in forever. Most of it was normal, Lena sending dumb memes, Mara being passive-aggressive in that fake nice way she mastered. But then I saw it. A message from Mara sent late one night. "I don't know why you need him when you already have everything you need at home. You always run to strangers like they'll fix you. Maybe if you stopped pretending, you'd realize where you belong." I had ignored that message when I first saw it. Chalked it up to sister drama. Now it read like a neon sign in the dark. I reached out to Lena's old therapist. I wasn't sure I'd get anything, confidentiality laws and all that, but I wrote a long, honest email. Told her who I was, that Lena had died, and that I needed to understand. I didn't expect a reply. She called me 3 days later. She couldn't say much, but she said enough. She said Lena had been struggling with a deeply personal violation of trust from someone close to her. That she felt confused about boundaries. That she often described herself as a ghost in her own family. And this is the part that cracked me in half. Lena believed that if she ever spoke up, she'd be the one people turned on. Again. Because they always did. I thanked her. Hung up. And sat there on the floor of my apartment, holding that stupid flash drive in my hand, wishing I could throw it into the sun. Wishing Lena had told me all this. Wishing I could rewind time and pay more attention. I could have seen it. I should have seen it. Instead, I had blamed myself. Let her sister walk around in a costume of grief while I wore the chains. I started seeing the signs and memories like bruises I hadn't noticed before. The way Lena flinched when Mara hugged her too long. How she'd go silent for whole days after family visits. That one night she came over after a fight with Mara and just curled up in my bed and cried, saying over and over, "It's not what you think. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want this." I thought she meant depression. She didn't. I wanted to confront Mara. God, I wanted to. But what would I say? That I had her dead sister's journal? A handful of shaky recordings and some ugly context? What would justice even look like? Dragging her out into the open wouldn't bring Lena back. It wouldn't make her less dead. It wouldn't unburn the parts of her brain Mara had slowly lit on fire over years of manipulation and emotional incest. And maybe worse. But what I could do was stop pretending. So I made a decision. I started writing everything down. All of it. I scanned every journal page. Saved every recording to the cloud and printed transcripts. Sam helped. He put me in touch with 2 of Lena's other friends who had also been pushed away by Mara in the last year of Lena's life. They had stories too. Unsettling ones. One of them, Grace, had dated Lena briefly and told me that after they broke up, Mara bombarded her with texts saying Lena had a pattern of seducing and abandoning people, calling her toxic and narcissistic. Grace showed me screenshots. It was all projection. Mara had been dismantling Lena's support system piece by piece, until Lena was alone, just where she wanted her. I realized then that Mara didn't just manipulate Lena. She isolated her. Systematically. Quietly. Like pulling threads from a sweater until there's nothing left but a tangle. That night, I took Lena's necklace out of the box where I'd hidden all her things. It was bent slightly, one clasp missing. I hadn't touched it in years. I wore it to sleep. Not because I believe in ghosts, but because I needed to remember that Lena was real. Not just a victim. Not just a cautionary tale. She was funny. And smart. And complicated as hell. And she loved hard even when it cost her. And she deserved better than a silent grave and a lying sister. I didn't go to the police. That's the part one struggle with most when I lay awake at night. I had all this stuff, the voice memos, the journal, the testimony from friends, but none of it felt like enough. Not enough to prove something criminal had happened. Not enough to put a label on what Mara had done. Emotional incest? Grooming? Coercion? Whatever it wasn't cleanly packaged for court. It was tangled in shame, silence, and trauma. And dead girls don't testify. So I did the only thing I knew how to do. I told the truth. Not to the cops. Not to Mara. But publicly. I spent weeks writing it. Lena's story. Our story. Every detail I could remember. How we met. How we loved. How she changed. How she broke. And how I'd spent years thinking it was me who pushed her off that cliff. I left out names, but I didn't hide the truth. I shared parts of her journal, with her voice preserved exactly as it was, raw and trembling. I included the quote from the flash drive, the one where she said, "You broke me. I changed enough to protect identities, but not enough to protect the guilty." And then I posted it. On Reddit, Medium, everywhere. It didn't go viral. It wasn't some true crime expose with sponsors and a Netflix deal. But it mattered. People read it, commented, shared their own stories. I got messages from survivors, people who had also been abused by siblings, or manipulated by those they trusted most. People who said they'd been told they were crazy for years, until they found words for it. It helped. Not just them. Me. I finally stopped drowning. About a month after the post went live, I got an anonymous email from a burner account. No signature. No introduction. Just a short message. "I hope you feel better now that you've burned it all down." She never told the full story. But neither did you. There was no doubt in my mind who it was from. I didn't reply. Mara could rot in her own silence. I wouldn't give her more oxygen to twist my words. But I still printed the email. Highlighted that last sentence. Because that's the thing abusers do. They always try to drag you back into the fog. They want you confused, questioning, curled up in doubt. I've spent too many nights there. I'm not going back. I started therapy again. Real therapy. No more pretending I was just grieving normally. I was processing trauma wrapped in guilt, wrapped in betrayal. My therapist, bless her, helped me understand that survivor's guilt is a kind of mirror. You only see what you think you deserve. For years, I looked into that mirror and saw a murderer. Now I see a man who loved someone broken, and did the best he could with what he knew. Was I perfect? No. I made mistakes. I missed signs. I backed away when I should have leaned in. But I didn't abuse her. I didn't isolate her. I didn't crush her voice. That was Mara. Sam and I stayed close. He helped me build a little website for Lena. Just a quiet corner of the internet where people could read her words and see her art. We posted some of her sketches, her playlists, her favorite quotes. It wasn't much, but it felt like hers again. No filters. No edits. Just Lena. One night I got a message from Grace. The ex Lena had once pushed away because of Mara. She said, "Thank you for telling the truth. I thought I was crazy for so long." That sentence broke me all over again. Because if Lena had just one person believe her, maybe she'd still be here. Maybe that person could have been me. Maybe it still can be me. For someone else. I don't pretend I have closure. That's not real. There's no bow to tie around this kind of grief. But I stopped carrying a coffin I didn't put in the ground. I stopped apologizing for something I didn't do. Mara? She's still out there, I guess. Posting inspirational quotes. Holding charity events for mental health. Smiling with her perfectly curated grief mask. Let her. The truth is out there now. Quiet but unignorable. A crack in her mirror that will never smooth over. And me? I'm still learning how to forgive myself, not for what I did, but for believing the wrong version of her for so long.